Waiting for mortgage rates to drop could be a costly mistake. Once rates drop, new home buyers will enter the market and prices will soar even higher. At Churchill Mortgage, you can get a free analysis and learn how to avoid the trap of waiting for interest rates to drop. Buy now and refi later at churchillmortgage.com. This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing lender. 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Buccaneers Podcast, Season 3, Episode 13, Start date 948, Mark 56. This week we're talking about Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 3, People of Earth, which sounds like a 70s progressive rock album name. Anyway, my name is Timitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mr. and Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
And we have Jaime Lopez Jr. on the line in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
All right, cool. It is going well. It is going well. We have to figure out how Borat would say that. Well,
very nice.
It's very nice. Yes, very nice. Okay. Alrighty, which is I think the same thing that it's very close to what the what are those guys called from Saturday Night Live, Coneheads.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Coneheads, yeah, mass quantities. Yes, exactly those guys. Alrighty, so I guess we'll just dig in as we usually do, right? So fact checking some stuff. This is me. Point Roberts is a Penne enclave of the United States on the southernmost tip of Tawasin Peninsula. Tawasin is is considered part of the Lower Mainland or part of Vancouver area. It's a sort of it's like a bedroom community where a lot of people work or live in Tawasin, and they live in White Rock and a few places like that on that same sort of chunk of land. And they would normally commute up to Richmond or to Vancouver for work. And it's very near Surrey, which is the biggest suburb in Canada. But the 49th parallel, if you click on the link, the Washington link that I've got there's like a picture on the map. The 49th parallel cuts right across, and the name of the road is, I think it's Roosevelt Drive, that cuts this chunk of land in half. So the lower half is the United States, and the upper half is Tawasin, right? Or Vancouver, Canada, whatever. And so that's what I was talking about last week. That one road divides the place in half, and it's completely surrounded on three sides. It does have an airport, an international airport, Jaime. So I guess you could fly out of there, right? Yeah, Roosevelt Road cuts it in half. So it's kind of a weird little cut off part of the United States, right? So we didn't follow up on whether or not they're landlocked or they're allowed to cross into Canada at all, whatever, right?
Like during this closed border pandemic period, the way the story was presented here in Washington State, it was like, oh, they're cut off because they can't just go through willy-nilly like they used to do, just a year prior. And international airport, I guess because it could fly to Vancouver. It's international airport get in the plane and somebody gets out and pushes it over the line sort of way. Like, it's certainly not flying to Indonesia or something. So but technically international.
There's a comment here on the bottom of the page, and the other thing, notable residents, Pavel Bure from the National Hockey League Vancouver Canucks, right? Glenn Hanlon lived there. Michael McLean, Hollywood, Emmy Award winner, Hollywood director, producer. Who else is on here? Nancy Wilson from Heart.
She's still married to Cameron Crowe?
I don't think they're married anymore, no. Alexander McGillney lived there. He was once a Toronto Maple Leaf, in fact, right? Did he play with the Canucks for a while?
Yeah.
I guess he must have, right?
Yeah.
And then he went to Buffalo or something like that,
No,
right?
he started in Buffalo.
Apparently, Heart's album Dreamboat Annie was recorded in. It was recorded in Vancouver. It says, but the guitarist also lived in Point Roberts. So there you go. Already, it's funny. I lived there for 8 months near there, and I never actually went down and checked that out. But that would have been an interesting thing to do, go for a drive and visit the States. Right? Anyway. Alrighty, so that's Point Roberts. We talked about that last week. And what else we got here? Oh, yeah, we were talking about GMT and UTC. So GMT is Greenwich Mean Time, Greenwich is a place near England. That's where the clock starts. I don't know why they chose that particular place. But UTC is something we talk about in computers, and it actually is the same time as GMT, but that's Coordinated Universal Time. So that's where we were talking about time zones last week, right? And John, you got a couple of things?
Yeah, so we were talking about the circuitous route that packages take coming in and out of the United States, and we weren't sure where FedEx is. FedEx is apparently Memphis, Tennessee.
Right, right.
So that's where I guess some large amount of things get funneled through there and then out to everywhere else. I guess it makes sense. Memphis is right in the middle of the United States.
I do remember seeing a thing on 60 Minutes once about, how shipping works or that kind of overnight courier stuff works. And I know that everything goes to Memphis, and then it's sorted and then distributed all overnight, which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, I guess that would, if it was flying from New York to Memphis, it would be like a long flight. 5-6 hours. I guess I could do it. But do we know where UPS's headquarters are, or because that's where Apple stuff. We were talking about Apple delivering iPhones, and that goes by UPS, right? So maybe next week we'll know. And off you go.
Atlanta, Georgia, United States.
Oh, Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. Was that kind of sort of where your phone went, Jaime, when you were tracing it? Remember?
Mine went through Tennessee, and I believe it was being delivered by FedEx. And UPS,
it was FedEx. So for you, okay.
And UPS, you said, was in Atlanta. That makes sense because Atlanta has the largest, most populous, or most busy airport, I think, in that region. So it kind of makes sense as a hub for Delta.
Also a hub for The Walking Dead.
And the TV show.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious. So does Apple stuff delivered by FedEx or by UPS for you guys in Seattle?
I haven't bought a phone in 3 years, so this is the first one that I bought in a while, and I could have sworn the other one was UPS. So I don't know why this one was FedEx.
Because I mean, everything I've ordered through Apple in the last 10 years, and as you know, I've ordered quite a few things, always came by UPS. It used to drive me crazy because they were, the drivers were. I swear they hide across the street and wait till you're not looking, and then they run up and stick a sticker on your door and run away, right? So
right.
Sorry, we missed you. But now I have a doorbell camera, so they can't play that game anymore. So I figured them out.
Yeah, the UPS folks have got the ghillie suits on, and they're crawling out of the swamp near your house to deliver when you're not there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the last phone that literally came to my house, I took the dog for a walk, and around the corner the FedEx or the UPS truck was parked, and so I just said to Mac, "We're going back home." And sure enough, 5 minutes later, the guy walked up to the door. I would have missed him. I would have missed the delivery if I had continued on the walk with Mac, right? So anyway, all right. So what's your next follow up item or fact check item there, Jonathan?
Yeah, we were talking about the reboot or the sequel to Willow coming to Disney Plus. Jaime brought that news to us last week, and I had mentioned that there was a series of sequel novels that had been penned by George Lucas and Chris Claremont. I was trying to fish for the names. I got two of them. I said Shadow Moon and Shadow Dawn. I couldn't remember the last one, and I have it out on my bookshelf, so I went and looked, and it's Shadow Star. So Shadow Moon, Shadow Dawn, and Shadow Star are the trilogy that take place many years after the events of Willow. Whether or not they'll use those for Disney Plus's new series remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think we have a copy of Shadow Moon here. It looks familiar, the name anyway. Yeah. I know we have a George Lucas hardcover here, but I don't know if anybody's actually cracked open and read it in our household. We were also I was talking about World of Worlds last week, and because I said it was from 1999, and it's being broadcast here as a new show, although Rogers doesn't mark it as new, which means I have to change my PVR settings like an animal. But it was actually produced by Canal Studios, Heroes in the UK. Same people who brought us Shaun of the Dead, as a matter of fact. So it was on BBC One production. So it stars, Gabrielle Byrne and a few other people, and it's a little bit of a different take on the whole World of Worlds. I think the general plot is the same sort of thing, but it's very reminiscent of The Walking Dead. First couple of years of The Walking Dead, where people are kind of going, "What the heck is going on here?" And instead of like in the World of Worlds, they had these large machines and the aliens would come down in them. Here they're more like those Boston Dynamics dogs, seen those robot dogs that Boston Dynamics produced. So they kind of walk around and they take people out, but they're like those robot dogs that come through, and we're trying to figure out what the heck they're doing, doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a good show. I mean, I think I'm 3 episodes in, so it's been pretty good. I'll keep an eye on it. Anyway, what's up? Jaime, you got something?
One bit of follow up is or fact checking. I'm not sure what to call it here. I guess we're checking the facts of what is
fact checking. Yes.
Star Trek Discovery like on normal broadcast CBS. So
you watched the show? Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I took you guys said, hey, you can watch whichever one. I was like, all right, well, context is for Kings. Season 1, episode 3 is the one I chose as my homework, and I watched, and I took a few notes. One that I thought was interesting, given what's happening in season 3 with the Byrne event, is that they very casually mention when the Michael Burnham's on the shuttle with the other inmates being transported, and the Discovery ends up saving them. They sort of casually make this statement that like, oh, they're being moved because they were at a dilithium mine and some of it went piezoelectric, and boom, it exploded, which is interesting. So I wonder if that's something that was pre-planned that far ahead, that they were going to go with the Byrne as a concept, or if the writers threw that in casually and then say, hey, this might be a good idea for us to pick up again and move forward with for season 3.
That's interesting. Piezoelectric means it had a pressure put on it, right? So I think like piezoelectric charges come off when you have a piezo material and you put pressure on it. Like they use them as triggers in MIDI instruments like drum kits and stuff like that. So interesting stuff. And they also can be used for speakers and buzzers and stuff. Anyway,
other quick note is we were wondering where commercials would go, and they do seem to be in sort of logical places. Fades to black, cuts to black, the kind of thing where something dramatic has happened. So in this case, the very first commercial occurs when Discovery saves the shuttle. So you see the ship coming out of nowhere and using the tractor beam to save the shuttle from doom. Where did they make cuts so they could put in commercials? One thing is that the intro song is a jingle at best in the like Intel boom 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 or NBC boom 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 sort of jingle. Like they do not show any of the intro other than the very last part that's sort of the Discovery sort of swooping toward the camera, and it is 10 seconds at best. Which is
the little introduction cartoony thing.
Yeah. They just say, you're watching Discovery. Here you go.
Wow, really?
It is shockingly short. I thought, oh, okay. I got used to watching on CBS All Access where I see the whole music. I like the intro music for Discovery, and they cut there. The second commercial in that particular episode is when Tilly finds out that her new roommate is Michael Burnham and is the Michael Burnham mutineer, and they go to black alert, and she turns away from Michael, and it's kind of a scary, interesting thing. And coming back from commercial, they just completely cut out that material synthesizer CGI and just go to like, oh, Michael has a finished uniform now. Like she's pulling it out of like a toaster oven or something. Like they didn't show the little cubes, lightning storm thing of the synthesizer thing. So it looks like they found places where, hey, this isn't critical plot. Let's just go ahead and cut. And otherwise, other than maybe some smaller, non-noticeable edits, because I didn't write notes about it and I didn't notice, it seemed like a normal episode from that point.
Right.
Yeah. So
did they move the cast credits to the end? Because they would have taken the cast credits out of the title sequence, right?
Ooh, I didn't pay attention to that. That's a good point. If they don't show it in the intro,
because that's where they have all the main actors' names, right?
Yeah. So maybe I got to do the secondary follow-up. I got to go look up somewhere in the notes where, like, we were wondering, how did they deal with Klingon boobs? Spoilers, season 1 has Klingon boobs. So
yeah.
Let's see what they show for that critical scene. I got to go find the episode, and then when it airs, I can watch and see what did they do with the cast credits.
Just to see the Klingon boobs?
No, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to see them, but that was an area where it's like, how would you cut that one and yet still get the point across of what's happening to this character?
Well, did you keep an ear open for the swears?
I don't recall swears in that particular episode. I'm sure there might have been some, but there wasn't any, this is the power of math people kind of, this is really cool. Sort of thing, right? I don't think that happens in that episode, so it wasn't a noticeable one.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and it's interesting about the little title sequence you talked about, because the part where the ship sort of flies towards the camera is the part where they drop in the original series theme.
That's why. Right? That's why it's like an NBC jingle, boom, 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 and then, all right, done. It's like that's the end of the title card.
Yeah, because they had that whole sort of like leading in part with the animations, and they showed like the the glove, and they showed a little bit of the Red Angel and that kind of stuff, and tricorder or something like that.
None of that. It was like dun 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 dun, dun and then ends.
Really? Well, so like they don't even have the whole Discovery theme song in there at all.
No, right? No, it's a beautiful theme song. I've liked it for. Maybe I'm saying something factually untrue, that maybe I wasn't really into it when we first started the series, but like having seen it episode by episode for 2 going into 3 seasons, I'm like, I actually really like this song, and I was very shocked when it did not start the way that I'd expected, and that it was so short.
Yeah. Oh, the bad edit a couple of weeks ago, I was humming it before the cold opener, but the Discovery part, not the original series part. Anyway, all right. So moving on. So here's my big complaint about this entire episode that we just watched today. Like right from the very get-go, I'm like, what the F? I can't believe I'm watching a science fiction show that's like totally not based in actual science, because as it says here, I said last week, and I'm backing it up with the fact that the American Academy of Dermatology says that hair grows half an inch per month on average, which basically means that a grand total of 6 inches of hair can be grown on a human head in a year, right? Burnham's hair is at least 24 inches long, and it's braided, which means it's longer than that. Having had long hair and having had children with long hair, I can tell you, fake news, her hair is not like legit for, like, if her hair had grown that much from the first episode of this season to the 3rd episode, which is where we are now, it'd be like 4 years, maybe 5 years of worth of hair there. So not buying it.
Yeah, I had flagged that in my notes, so I took the notes for tonight's episode, and I had flagged that they do that sort of montage. We'll get into it. They do a little montage where you see her hair visually growing over the course of the time that she's looking for Discovery. But then I thought to myself, maybe this is us applying 21st century logic to a 32nd century problem.
You mean you can replicate extensions now?
Maybe there's something that stimulates hair growth. I know, as somebody who is follicularly challenged, that I would like to think that 900 years from now that, you press a button, you get a, jar comes out of the dispenser, and you rub some cream on your head.
Explain Dr. or Captain Picard or Leland,
Maybe they choose that. Maybe, it's a vanity thing. Maybe she just was like, I want to change my hair. So she pressed the magic hair button on the replicator, and...
Was she sitting around waiting for Discovery to show up?
Yeah. She was like, you know what? I got nothing else to do with my time. I'm going to mess with my hair.
Knitted a sweater or something in the same time?
Well, I bet you it takes as long to knit a sweater as it does to tie that hair. That's incredibly long.
Yeah, and that's Tim, true. Canonically, we've never seen enough of Picard's sort of daily routine that going along Jonathan's lines. If you've ever used those like Play-Doh sets that you like squish through and the strands come out, and then you just sort of cut it. Maybe Picard really likes doing that every morning of like, I'm explicitly choosing not to have hair, so I'm going to grow out all this hair with little, magic serum or whatever it is that they do. And like, I'm just going to shave it all right now so it's nice and clean.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's funny. I just finished watching All Good Things. It was replayed in 2 parts last night, or 2 nights ago. And so I watched the second half where Riker's got the gray beard and the gray hair, and Picard's got the gray beard but no hair, and Data's got the streak of hair, because he wants the gray to be distinguished looking.
Mm-hmm.
And, everything. It's sort of interesting how they aged the characters, and it's all about their facial hair and how their hair is handled, whatever, right? So.
nothing says time has passed like hair growth.
That's true. That's true.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, and Worf has the big, Klingon, 70s hairband look,
Yep.
Alrighty, let's move on to our headlines. So, what do you got first, Jonathan?
Yeah, cool stuff this week. So, we had gotten the news that we were going to get a series from Disney Plus around the Marvel character Moon Knight. Well, this week, the story started flying fast and furious that they were in negotiations, Disney was in negotiations with Oscar Isaac to play the Moon Knight. And I still haven't seen any stories that say it's 100% confirmed. It just says that they are entering negotiations. But again, that's an A-list talent to play a TV show. So they're not messing around. They're doing, big pieces, which made me immediately think, oh, so then they must have plans to incorporate this character at some point into the cinematic universe, writ large. Maybe he will become an Avenger or something else down the line, because Oscar Isaac is, an A-list star. I mean, this guy just, was one of the co-leads of the new Star Wars trilogy. He's, obviously got a lot of accomplished things under his belt as far as sci-fi goes, let alone the other stuff. But I mean, he was in Ex Machina, which was outstanding. I thought he was really, really good in that. So yeah, I think this is like a really nice little coup and a nice signing to potentially play the character of Moon Knight. I think we talked about it very briefly, but Moon Knight as a character, he's sort of a Batman-esque character. He, goes out at night and he wears the cape and the mask and the whole bit. But in the comics, he's very mentally disturbed. He's got some real mental health issues. And so he's a very complex character. And I think that Isaac could bring some real some interesting stuff to that role. What do you guys think?
I know nothing about the character, but I do know his portrayal in say, like, was he in Rogue One? I think so, right?
No, he was Poe Dameron in
Poe Dameron, sorry, Poe Dameron. Yeah, so the difference between Poe Dameron and the rich dude in
Ex Machina. Yeah.
I mean, like completely different characters, completely different portrayal, which is very effective, right? Like, I wouldn't have thought of them necessarily as the same people, right? So yeah, and actually the other guy from Star Wars is in that too, the guy who plays Hawks, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the Moon Knight character. I do vaguely remember having one old comic book that I read as a kid and thinking that it was sort of Batman-esque, but I really don't know much about the character, so kind of excited to see how they explain it to sort of modern audiences and what they decide to do to simplify things.
Well, and especially given the dearth of movies right now, the fact that they're willing to have A-list stars and put them on Disney Plus, I'm yes, please.
Yeah, cool. And what's next?
Next up, we were talking last week about Justice League, the Snyder cut that is being made for HBO Max in the United States, and I'm guessing Crave here in Canada. We had talked about the fact that they were bringing Jared Leto in to film some scenes as the Joker, even though he had not been in that film previously. Well, this week we got news that there are apparently also in negotiations to bring back another villain that had been in previous DC Universe films, but not in the Justice League. So Deathstroke makes an appearance in, now I'm going to remember. Is it the end of, I think, Superman versus Batman? Or is it Justice League? I can't remember. He has a cameo at the end of one of the movies, and there was talk that meant he was going to be one of the stars. He was going to come back. He was going to have a bigger role. It was played by Joe Manganiello. I know what he looks like. I know the dude, but I don't know if I can say his name. Anyways, he was sort of one of those characters that they teased but then never really circled back on, and apparently they are going to cast him in this movie and bring him back and shoot some scenes and sort of tie him into that as well. So that's pretty cool. Again, a little perplexing because it sounds like we already got the impression that this was going to be a completely different movie, but this sounds like it is a completely different movie than the one that we got in the theaters,
right,
including two new villains now. Pretty neat.
So this is the Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batman, Superman thing, right?
Correct. So, and it's all based on DC Comics. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah,
it's just a cut of another movie.
It is like a totally brand new movie given the extensive changes that we had talked about. But I do remember. Yeah, I do think it was end of Justice League where
it's Lex Luthor. He's on the boat with Lex Luthor,
right? Who says, "Isn't it time we had a league of our own?"
Yeah, and there's a tease about like the the possibility of that they're going to go down the road of doing a Legion of Doom kind of thing, which, you know, gives longtime nerds like me a big comic erection here.
Woody nonetheless.
That's right. Next up, we have a new Netflix series that's coming, and this is going to be based on Assassin's Creed, one of the most popular video game franchises over the past almost 20 years now. Assassin's Creed has already been made into a theatrical film starring Michael Fassbender. I don't know if you gentlemen have seen this film.
No, I was wondering about that, yeah.
Jaime, have you seen this one?
I've seen bits and pieces of the Michael Fassbender one because it was like on TBS or something right when the pandemic started. So I've not sat down and watched it. It seemed all right-ish. I mean, I didn't feel compelled clearly to sit and watch it. But the Assassin's Creed stuff, I think, could work as a series because they'll have more time to explain what you would sort of get out of the games of like, hey, here is this stuff that happened in the past. We put you here in the present in this machine to experience what happened there.
Yeah, right?
So that, I think that'll, like, it was already feeling a little weirdly rushed for how they were approaching that in a 2-hour movie.
Yep.
And I think a TV series can handle that a little bit better.
Yeah, it was a little clunky as movies go. I did not particularly enjoy it. It had some interesting scenes and it was certainly well shot, and Fassbender's a great actor, so he brings a little something to it, but it was a lot more style over substance, as I recall, not really a lot of there. But yeah, I think like so many things, we talked about this, right? Now, instead of doing a 2-hour movie where you're really just trying to make people feel like they got their money's worth, when you can take your time and do a 10 episode or a 15 episode or whatever season, and you can really, immerse the character and really add a lot of backstory and go a lot of different tangents. I think maybe Assassin's Creed needs that, so could be good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Jaime, you put this one in here. Yeah, because we were talking about this earlier on our Slack channel because I stumbled across this and I noticed that Jaime had to put it into the notes. I thought it was John who put it in. Anyway.
Yeah, I can't help but make the Green Lantern series is coming to Apple TV Plus. But no, it is John Stewart, not John John Stewart, the Green Lantern. So the former Daily Show host, John Stewart, if you're terribly confused, will come to Apple TV Plus as a series that sounds a whole lot like it's going to be the same sort of topical political and cultural commentary that John Stewart did for so many years on the Daily Show, and people are referencing John Oliver's Last Week Tonight as being something kind of similar. So I think this is a good win for Apple TV Plus. It's the kind of content that is a draw. So I'm excited to see that.
So do you think it's going to be like a daily show, or is it going to be like Letterman's show that shows up on Netflix every now and then?
Ooh, so it sounds like there are 3 different ones. So I don't think it's going to be daily. I did not think it would be the once a month roughly sort of thing that Letterman's sort of show ends up being if you spread it out. I could see it being more like Last Week Tonight, where they have a season. I actually don't know how many episodes they happen to do, but it's not 52 weeks, right? But it's roughly weekly, and
they take some hiatuses,
20 episodes or something.
Yeah,
tops.
They do pretty good chunks of Last Week Tonight, and it does sound a lot like the Daily Show, which is still going with Trevor Noah and is pretty good actually. Trevor Noah's done quite a nice job of filling rather big shoes with Jon Stewart leaving. Trevor Noah's quite good, and that's where I wondered where this fits, because when you think about what Last Week Tonight is and you think about what the Daily Show is, where does this fit? Is it a humor show? Is it a current affairs show? Like, Stewart's gotten pretty hardcore into activism and politics and stuff for realsies now that he's not doing the show anymore, and it'll be interesting to see if it's got a harder edge than Daily Show did.
Like Bill Maher show kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
interesting. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, based on what we've seen of Apple TV Plus's types of shows, they seem to be very polished and like a short run series. They don't seem to be like they don't have anything that's sort of live and weekly and repeating, right? So
yeah,
but maybe that's the kind of thing they're looking for, because I think eventually Apple TV Plus wants to become something similar to like a network itself, right? Which
wait till next year when some of the sports rights start coming available. If they take a swing at one of those, that'll change the ballgame.
Well, it's interesting because we talked about, you sent me a link, but I already got an email from Apple saying that, like anybody who had Apple TV Plus last year got it usually when they bought the new phone last year. Mm-hmm. And so we would all be expiring right about now, right? In terms of when our free year is up. And we got a letter saying we're extended until February sometime. So, which tells me a couple of things. One is I doubt it's actually a pat on the back and, hey, we feel sorry that you have to work from home kind of thing. I think it's that we realize we don't really have a huge audience, and they're trying to retain customers that have already got in on the free ride, right? Yeah. They want to convert us into long-term people, and the way they're showing shows now, like things on Disney Plus and Apple. I don't know. Apple's not doing the weekly reveal like Amazon Prime and Disney Plus is doing. I don't know if Netflix has done that yet, where they have tune in next week for the next episode kind of thing. Like I know Disney's doing that now with the right stuff, and of course we know the Mandalorian's like that, right? And but Apple doesn't. Well, no, I guess Apple did do that too, didn't they? They did the first 3 episodes of the morning show, and then you had to wait every week for a new episode, right? Mm-hmm. So I take that back. Let me rewind that whole thing. But I think that in order to retain viewers, they have to have a reason for the viewers to come back.
Yep.
Hopefully nightly. Most of our network television watching, for those of us who still have cable, like you and me, John, there are channels we tune into on particular nights. Like tonight we would have watched Discovery, but I almost said Deep Space Nine. But but other channels are not just they're not retaining my interest, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what they do. So basically, they bought themselves 4 months more of our time. I wonder what they'll do in those 4 months to make it worth our while, to make us want to make that subscription commitment. Because right now, I can't say that I felt that. Jon Stewart aside, it's still not a rich enough pool of content. There's no must-have there that I have to have this for.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, we know that if you're talking to Jon Stewart today, it's going to be months before he's actually airs a show, right? So because you don't stand these things up like that quickly, right? Yeah. Especially in the middle of a pandemic. All right, what's next, Simon?
Yeah. Speaking of apocalyptic scenarios, this next one, The Midnight Sky, is a trailer here for a movie by Netflix. It's going to star Mr. George Clooney, where this is a premise where Earth, sends out a spaceship that's sort of like the last best hope for mankind. But before that ship can return with information or data or, hey, we found a place sort of things, apocalyptic things have happened, and the Earth is just not a place where people should come and be. And Mr. Clooney plays a character who is obsessed with not abandoning his mission to send radio signals to that ship and tell them, don't come here, turn around, there's nothing for you here, everything has gone bad. And apparently he befriends a young child who shares that adventure with him. So I'm probably doing a very terrible job of describing what I saw in the trailer, so I'd say we'll have it in the show notes for those of you transporting home, so take a look at that. But the title card here is like, I imagine you all will be in a couple months going to Timmy's having to prepare yourself with your winter gear.
Right.
So George Clooney palling around with a kid trying to solve science fiction problems, wasn't that called Tomorrowland?
I was wondering about that as well.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that flick.
He was almost describing the Event Horizon too, right? So
yeah,
it's an original story. It's an original take on them. Anyway, next.
Okay, next. Well, speaking of Netflix, news just today that they are once again raising their rates. So we knew that they had raised their rates here. This one I think is targeted at the United States. According to Variety, they are upgrading their $12.99 plan to $13.99, their $15.99 plan to $17.99, and they're going to keep their standard SD plan at $8.99 a month. So you're paying $1 more or $2 more unless you are on the very basic package for your Netflix. So in case you're wondering how they can afford George Clooney and Assassin's Creed, the answer is you are the reason they can afford those things.
Yeah. So I think we talked about this on More Than Just Code a while back, about how it works with Jaime. Like Jaime, you pay for the number of high res streams you can have. Is that how that works?
Yeah, they sort of talk about this here in the article, and I was trying to think to myself, which one am I? I think I'm the $12.99 going to the $13.99 here, because I don't have the 4K plan, because I just sadly do not have a 4K television, so no reason to be at that tier. And it appears as if that tier that I'm on for the HD, the high def plan, is limited to 2 streams, which sounds about right. I remember thinking it was 2 or 3, and that you would get 3 or 4 in the next higher tier. So that sort of makes sense. And it looks like the standard def 1 stream plan is $8.99. So that one was one I'd never seriously considered. So that does sound about right. They tried to find a balance of, you're paying more for what? Well, clearly you're paying more for at least HD and paying more from that for 4K. And then they do have some number of, like, all right, well, we'll allow you to have how many simultaneous streams, which is sort of like, dude, we hypothetically say, oh, it's meant for like somebody's in the living room and somebody's in the office and they're watching, the home office watching. But really, it's your family's watching at your house and you gave it to grandma and she's watching something completely different in like a different state. Right?
Yes.
So,
wait, you can do that? What?
That's the first I'm hearing of this. Jaime, what are you talking about?
Never.
So is that the same sort of deal that we have here in Canada, Jonathan?
Yes. So okay. I have the 4K package, so I pay for the most, because we do have simultaneous users, and all of us have 4K TVs. So
right, cool, all right.
And without incriminating myself, that is all I will say about that.
Disney Plus, anyway, and Amazon too.
Yeah, and Spotify, and keep going. Audible.
Yeah, exactly.
We create our own socialism, Jaime.
Yep. Anyway, so what's next after Jonathan?
Another
CW.
Another good one. Yeah, CW has finally announced some of its season premiere dates, including its slate of DC Comics related material. So we now know that Batwoman season 2 is coming on Sunday, January 17th. This one will be interesting because it is a sort of soft reboot of the show, since Ruby Rose, who played Batwoman in the first season, has left and is now being replaced by Javicia Leslie, who is not only bringing a new person to the character, but she's also a Black woman. So nice little milestone there. So she's a lead. I don't know if she's also going to be a queer character, because I know that it was kind of a big deal that not only is Ruby Rose also an LGBTQ person, but she is playing one on TV, and that character is out as a character on TV was pretty important. I don't know if that's where they're going with this, but interesting, and it'll be, I guess we can start watching on the 17th of January and find out. Black Lightning season 4 is coming on February 8th, and The Flash and Superman and Lois, the new Superman and Lois TV shows, are both coming on February 23rd. So we've got some stuff to look forward to. It's been a little bit of a dry spell as far as sort of new television from that world. Everything sort of ended prematurely. None of them got proper season finales for Flash or for some of those other series. They just sort of ended. So it'll be interesting to see where they pick up and where they go from. And then a new series in Superman and Lois, and a sort of a reboot for Batwoman. So yeah, looking forward to those.
All right, cool.
And last but not least, this one has 2 links, because there was a link that I put in which has since been taken down.
Yes, I saw that.
And so I've added a Wikipedia link which simply refers to the subject matter. I will now introduce this subject. So the good folks at Tor.com, Tor.com, posted an article this week that caught my eye, where they mentioned that they had a full list of episode titles for season 3 of Discovery. And they said that something very interesting could be deduced by looking at the titles. The reason that I wanted to go look is because we were talking about the fact that the first episode of the season was purportedly called That Hope Is You Part 1. So I wanted to see if there was a Part 2 coming and when it was coming.
Right.
There isn't, so there's that. But the one thing that they did point out, which has now since been their little speculative theory, although I noticed there's a Reddit feed on this now too. One of the episodes that's coming up this season and I will tell you that it is episode 7 of this season, has a very familiar title to an episode of TNG. As a matter of fact, to 2 episodes of TNG. Spoilers. If you don't want to hear any more about this, we will be going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. But season 3, episode 7 of Discovery is called Unification 3.
Right.
And Unification 1 and 2 were one of the most important and sort of critical episodes or 2 of the most critical episodes of post original series Star Trek in bringing the character of Spock into TNG as Ambassador Spock and having him interact with the TNG crew, and then tying his sort of future history into the reunification between Vulcan and Romulus, and the daughter of Tasha Yar from the alternate timeline. So again, huge, very important episodes for TNG. Very, very telling that this is Unification 3 as this title, because what we can deduce is perhaps we're going to go down that pathway. I think it's safe to say that Spock is long since dead, 900 years in the future.
Yeah, but Zachary Quinto's not dead.
But it will be very interesting to see how they are going to bring that forward. So here's my question to you two. What does Unification 3 mean?
Yeah, I see where it could go. If it is indeed, hey, we had Unification 1 and 2 focus on Vulcan and Romulus trying to come together. And so maybe this is, Michael Burnham and company have to convince the Romulans and the Vulcans, like, look, I know you all have had this thing going on. We've tried, for a very long time to get you all together. And they can be like, oh yeah, actually this thing happened 700 years ago. Spock tried to do that too. It was like, wait, really? Okay, cool. Yeah, see, my brother tried to do that, and here I am 930 years later, and y'all are still fighting. Y'all still playing and clowning around. Just kiss and make up already, and let's rebuild this Federation.
But how would Michael Burnham know that Spock had done that in the future?
She wouldn't until they tell her, she's like, my brother Spock, and they're like, Spock, really? Spock, the guy from blah blah blah, and Captain Picard. She'd be like, I don't know who Captain Picard is, but yes, my brother Spock.
All right, here's my wild theory. Not a theory. Here's something I'd love to see. They go and encounter the Vulcans. They are trying to piece together the whole mystery of what happened to the Federation and the Starfleet and everything else. And they encounter the 700-plus-year-old android Picard, who did not turn off and is in fact still alive and is working with the Vulcans and the Romulans.
Picard or Data?
Picard. Because Picard's an android now, right?
Oh, is he? Oh, right. Like our Daniel Ovalon.
Yeah, what if he hadn't, they said, oh, we built in an expiration date, you'll live, X number more years.
Oh,
what if the expiration date doesn't work? What if he's still out there?
He was involved in Unification.
That's exactly right.
He basically had himself made up to look like a Romulan, right? Interesting.
Now, how would that be for a cameo or a crossover to tie the threads together?
That would be interesting, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
There's no reason why Data couldn't be the one either, too.
Well, he's theoretically dead also, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, we don't know. We don't know what's happened to the Federation at this point.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see in a scant 4 weeks.
Yeah, we'll know. We'll know by November. 4 weeks from tonight.
Yep.
We will know, and then all will be revealed. But that said, it's that time of the night show, folks, where we dive into Discovery, Season 3, Episode 3, The People of Earth, the reason why we're here to talk about this episode. So this week, Jonathan is doing the play-by-play, and I'll go and have a nap, and there you go.
Color commentary, they call it.
No way. You guys will be throwing peanuts from the peanut gallery. It's going to be a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
All right. So...
Oh, wait. I've got a whole bunch of things to throw in. Never mind. Carry on.
I will start by just noting that episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes, our famous number 1 himself, Commander William Riker, Captain Riker of the Titan.
Admiral, wasn't he? I just watched All Good Things, and wasn't he
but he didn't make that as far as we know in our real future. He's not Admiral. He's just he's inactive captain.
Right.
So let's see tonight's episode. So we basically start with previously on Discovery, and we do the what happened to Michael Burnham in the year that she was waiting for the Discovery to show up. So last week we got the big
replicating hair extension.
Exactly right. We got the big conclusion last week. week that Discovery had crashed. She came and pulled them out of the parasitic ice, and they were reunited after 2 episodes. And then we get the big, sort of gut punch moment where she says, I've actually been here for a year looking for you guys. I'm so happy you're here. So we go to the 1 year earlier. And so Burnham is sort of narrating what her life was like. She's hanging out with Book. She's become a courier, and she is taking these odd jobs trying to get more dilithium so that she can keep her search going for Discovery. There's this, as we talked about earlier, lovely little montage that shows her sort of earnestly searching the galaxy as her hair starts to grow and grow and grow and grow. And it goes from where we left her at the end of the first episode to her very, very long locks now. Leave it to your imagination how that happened in such short order. Apparently, the dermatologists disagree. And she basically outlines that, she never gave up hope. She was, doing that. She and Book were clearly getting close. And she and Book get this sort of call that, they finally have arrived. And so then we see her beaming aboard Discovery, and of course, a huge reception for her. Everybody's so happy to see her, knowing that they all made it together and they're reunited. Big hug from Tilly, big hug from Saru, and then she sort of, she hug from Detmer, and she's sort of going through the crowd, and then she sees through the crowd. She sees Georgiou is there, and that Georgiou made it with them, and they sort of give each other the sort of lock eyes, head nod. She knows she's not going to get a hug from Georgiou, but that Georgiou is there is really telling, right? So we start getting a little bit more of the background. She says that, she's been there for a year. She's been searching, but that, this is what's happened as far as the burn. This is what's happened as far as what the state of the universe is right now. She says that she finally got a message to Terralisium to try and track down her mom, and that they had never heard of her there. So that's kind of an interesting mystery for us to sink our teeth into over the course of the season. Where is her mom? What happened with her mom? They talk about the burn again and sort of what happened, and very dramatic effect where they sort of show all these ships in space and they all just sort of explode. And when they talk about it, they say, how many people died? Well, it was millions. And they say that they tracked down this message, right? This message from an admiral from Earth saying, hey, I'm still here. I'm still, holding out hope for all those people who are interested in, sharing that hope with me. Come meet me here at Earth. His name is Admiral Senatal. And the message was apparently sent 12 years ago. So they decide, okay, well then, what we're going to need to do is, get the spore drive booted up and head for Earth. But before they do that, they have to settle a little something first. And the question is, who's the boss? So, there's a few sort of looks across the bridge. Who's going to be it? Who's going to be it? And Burnham basically says, it's not me. I don't know if it's ever been me. And she basically puts her weight behind Saru as the captain. And Saru sort of very humbly and, kind of a very sweet scene, sort of, everybody sort of nods and says, yes, okay. And then he's about to sit down in his chair, and then he gives a little speech and says, yeah, we're in this together and we're reunited and we're going to work together and everything else. And the whole crew, all the bridge crew, all reply, "Aye, Captain," which is again very, very nice moment that they're all clearly behind Captain Saru, which is a nice moment for him. Again, really interesting evolution of that character.
So, question: how was there some doubt as to which one of the two of them would take the lead? Because they were both in the corridor when Captain Pike left, right?
Yes.
Was there sort of a, this is your ship now, you take it over kind of thing to Burnham, or?
Well, I think it was one of those things where if Burnham hadn't had to go put on the suit, there might have been a more earnest discussion as to who should be in the command chair. But because she had to go, it made sense for Saru to be the acting captain. And I think everyone would have probably been okay with that if she had needed to be the captain, including Saru. But because she had to go and lead the way by putting on the Red Angel suit and everything, it was sort of moot at the time. So this is the first time that it's sort of come to a head where I think Saru is looking to her saying like, well, do you want to be the captain? And she's looking at him saying, no, you should be the captain. Although we'll circle back to that because that does lead to a better conversation in a few minutes.
Sure. Okay.
So we cut to our opening credits. We come back and Tilly is standing in front of sort of an impromptu memorial wall for the people who died died in the final battle before they got through the wormhole into the future, and then some people who may have died in the crash. They don't specifically really show anybody's in particular that was of note to us, but Tilly is clearly in a very emotional place. She's coming to grips with the fact that not only have they lost these people whose badges and stuff they're looking at, but that her family's gone, her mom's gone, her cousins are gone, everybody she knows is long since dead, and just trying to sort of wrap her head around that whole thing. And knowing that they're going to go to Earth, she sort of says, I hope there's something there that I recognize. Do you think that there'll still be, the pyramids will still be there? Will there still be something that says like this is still our Earth? And do you think they'll still have cake? It's a very funny line about, do you think they'll still have cake? Yeah. And the line, cake is eternal, which I love that. Which was immediately followed from Xavier, which is a great in-joke here at the house, is no, the cake is a lie, which is, Jaime got that. It's a Portal joke, right?
Right.
No, the cake is a lie. So we cut from the two of them to the transporter room. And the transporter room, Georgiou is beaming someone aboard, and it's Book, who has been waiting on his ship, and she immediately starts to grill him a little bit about, well, so what's up with you, and what's up with you and Michael Burnham, and what's going on, and he finds himself very quickly on the defensive, and then so no, we're not sleeping together, no, we're not a thing, and Georgiou sort of cocking her eyebrow at him and giving him these sort of stern looks and trying to sort of get the measure of this man. A funny scene, well done by both of them. Interesting little moment there. Book comes back to meet up with Burnham because Burnham owes him a debt of not just gratitude but of dilithium for helping to get her to the Discovery and to help get the Discovery out of the ice. So he gets his first look at the deposits of dilithium that are aboard the Discovery, which is for him a king's ransom. He says it's enough to power 1, 2, 3, no, maybe a dozen sectors of space, and he's just sort of blown away. And inevitably, of course, that leads to her sort of saying, hey, like, I know this is what we've been working towards, but you should come with us. You should tag along. And he says, well, what's in it for me? And she said, well, I'll get you out of this sector where everybody wants to kill you. And he's like, well, no, I want to stay. I want to take care of my giant space worms. And she says, there's other places where you can find space worms. You should come with us. So he sort of decides, okay, I'm going to come with you guys. So then we cut to a good scene between Saru and Burnham, where Saru is trying to sort of get the measure of, who Burnham is now after a year. From his perspective, they saw each other a few days ago, and from her perspective, it's been over a year. And they're sort of, feeling each other out. And he sort of says, I must admit, Michael, I'm kind of suspicious and I'm kind of curious. Why didn't you want to be the captain? And, he sort of says, I was going to make you my commander, my number one. But, I'm kind of wondering where your head is at. And she sort of says, yeah, I'm kind of wondering where my head is at too. And so we sort of get that sense that, she was enjoying the life that she had in spite of the fact that she was missing her crewmates and missing her friends. And
I think she did some bad things too, probably, right?
Well, yeah. It's
non-Starfleet kind of thing.
Well, and Georgiou kind of nails it later on where she sort of says, this is the first time where she didn't have other people's expectations. She could just sort of be her own person. So we're kind of left to that imagination of, well, is she happier in that life with Book? Is she happier being outside of Starfleet? Is she happier not being in that sort of structure? And so it does put a nice plants a little seed in your mind of, well, maybe she's not who we remember. Maybe she has gone a little more rogue. And we will see that come around back later in the episode. So they decide, okay, fine. She's going to think about being number one. And Book decides to join the mission at her recommendation to Saru. But the idea is that he has to put his ship in their cargo bay. They're going to put the dilithium in his ship, and then he's got the cloaking device. So that way, no one will be able to know that they have this huge hoard of dilithium, and it'll hopefully take some of the target off their back. They fire up the spore drive. They kick it into gear. They they do the big spinny thing, which Book finds very, very interesting and amusing. They show up on the far side of Saturn, and then they sort of chug along at sublight speed towards Earth. When they get there, they discover that, Earth is not the place that they left that many years ago. There's this rather sophisticated shield system that goes up around Earth, and they're greeted with this alert from the United Earth Defense Force, Captain Ndoye, and she basically says, "You're not welcome here. This is I don't know what you're here for. We've scanned you. We're not interested in this." And they say, "Well, listen, if we just want to have a dialogue. Saru's trying to be very diplomatic. He's just trying to explain the circumstances." He says, "Well, you're welcome to, come and talk to us." And they're like, "Fine, we will." And they just they all beam aboard Discovery right through the shields. Nothing because he says shields up at one point, right? So they just beam right through everything, which I thought was really interesting because obviously technology is different, but aren't the shields supposed to keep you from beaming out? Anyways, beaming in, beaming out.
I think both, although there have been paths through that depending on the situation.
Yeah, there's always a way through it by sciencing it. So then we start getting into the 20 questions, right? Who are you? Why are you here? What are you talking about? What's going on? And so Saru sort of says, we're here. We were on a science mission. We were descended from the original crew. They beam through, and then they're okay. So now they're going to be basically checking things over. Burnham and Book, of course, were wearing their civilian clothes, so they got to blend in. They go and they put on uniforms. For Burnham, you can tell that it's kind of a strange moment for her to put that uniform back on for the first time in that long. That she really feels very sort of conflicted about putting it on. For Book, it's pretty straightforward. He has no interest in becoming Lieutenant Booker. He's talking about a mission where they had to climb through a swamp and pick leeches off each other, and he's like, "I'd rather do that than wear this uniform." Pretty funny. Georgiou, of course, has to do the same thing. She's wearing her Section 31 outfit. She goes and puts on a uniform, and of course she grabs the Admiral's uniform because why wouldn't she? Pretty funny. Pretty funny. They mentioned at this point that the Defense Force is so on guard because they've been having these raiding attacks. There's this infamous local raider, Wen, who is targeting all ships trying to get the dilithium off them. And we also hear at this point that Ndoye tells them, there's no Federation or Starfleet on Earth. They're gone. They've been long gone. As a matter of fact, they've been gone for over 100 years. And not only that, but Earth is no longer part of the Federation, which is a really huge milestone, that they are completely detached. They are basically have gone to a protectionist society where they are just looking out for themselves. After the burn, they put up the shields. They are hunkering down. They are their own thing. I'll leave you guys to determine your own political, real life behavioral models for this type of behavior. They also find out that Tal, the person that they came to try and reach out to, is dead. So that's a big burn for them. As part of the crew that's beamed aboard is a 16-year-old, a very precocious 16-year-old named Adira, who beams into the engineering department and is just fascinated with the Spore Hub and Stamets's technology and what's going on in there. And so she's checking it out, and she's figuring things out. And we're getting a taste that this is going to be a character who's going to excel. She's going to definitely be someone who could sort of pull the threads on their story. And of course, as vastly foretold earlier on, when ships finally arrive, the Raiders come out of the black, and they are there for the dilithium. See what I wrote down. The United Earth crew is stuck. So yes, they've figured out that their personal transporters, those instant transporters that go through the shields, aren't working, and they figure out that something has gone wrong and there's been sabotage. Yes. And so the question becomes, who did this? Who could have sabotaged us so that we're stuck here? So then we cut to the next scene where Tilly and Stamets are in engineering, and they are sort of, vexed by these people, and of course they immediately turn their suspicions to Adira because she was so interested in their equipment and their technology. They think that maybe she had something to do this.
Who thinks this?
Tilly and Stamets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Burnham and Book decide to take matters into their own hands. They've got a plan. So they hop aboard Book's ship, and they take off and they head towards where the raiders are. And Book sort of says, shouldn't you tell your captain guy what we're doing? She's like, no, he'll have to trust me. And Saru is ticked. And Ndoye, the United Earth captain, basically says, like, okay, they cannot turn over all that dilithium to the raiders. We're going to take them out. So she says, Earth defenses are going to target them, and so they're going to blast them out of the sky. And while this is happening, we're also getting an interesting interplay between Burnham and Book, who clearly have been building quite the rapport and clearly have been ne'er-do-wells, because they're talking about all these, like, well, we could try it like this. It was like, remember that mission we did this and we did that, and clearly they've had quite the busy year of doing stuff, but they think that they can work this guy when. So as the United Earth vessel or United Earth defenses are about to start shooting at Book and Burnham, Saru makes the decision, you know what? Okay, we can't let them get blown out of the sky. They have our dilithium and they're our friends. We're not going to let them get blown up. Put Discovery in between the defenses and that ship. And when he gives that order, Detmer is clearly gun shy. She has this moment, and so we know from last episode she was pretty shaken by the rather turbulent entry they had into the 32nd century, and she's clearly not ready for that. And he sort of says, I've given my order, do it. So they put themselves between the two ships, and in one blast their shields are toasted and they're in trouble. And so they know that there's going to be another blast, and just before the other blast can be delivered, Burnham and Book turn up on the ship, and they have captured Wen. So as soon as Wen lowered his shields to get the dilithium aboard, they beamed him out and they captured him. And they bring him aboard. They're questioning him. He's got this really sort of weird space helmet. You're not sure if he's an alien or what's going on. And Georgiou decides to do her own version of diplomacy by hoofing him in the back of the leg so that he crumbles, and then ripping his helmet off. And of course, he turns out to be a rather beleaguered looking old man.
Human.
Yeah, Human. And so we cut from there. We go back down to Discovery, down towards the engineering part, and Stamets finds Adira, and Adira is in a Jeffries tube, and she's poking around, and he says, listen, I know what you're doing. I know you're the one that sabotaged us. And he sort of lays it out on the line, and he is not pulling any punches. He talks about how they're from the past. He talks about what the spore drive is. He basically puts it all on the line, and she says, well, I just wanted to find a way that I could stay here longer. I really wanted to see your technology. I really wanted to understand it. And so she says, actually, I've got two things that I want to tell you. One, I know Tal, so, maybe he's not so dead after all. And two, I want to come with you when you guys leave. We cut back to the conference room, and we find out that when the raider is actually from a colony on Titan, they had sort of seceded, I guess, from the oversight of Earth in the past. They had their own colony and things were going well, and then things started going badly. They say that there was a catastrophe that sort of ruined their some of their soil and made things really hard living conditions there for there. They say that they did actually initially sort of send
SETI Alpha 5, right?
Yeah, pretty much. They said they sent a mission of mercy to Earth to ask for help, and they were shot out of the sky. And that's when they decided, fine, if that's the way it's going to be, we're just going to become raiders and we're going to start this. And so we start to see this move towards, well, they're actually there is common ground, and that they start to get Ndoye and Wen talking, and they realize that they could actually help each other, and and we see the sort of the right of the Federation, the right of the Starfleet is actually going to be the right answer for these two, that there is a non-violent solution that they can work their way through, and they agree to start working on negotiations. So victory for the Federation Starfleet way of life.
Yeah, such a typical Star Trek kind of solution to things where everybody's like, yeah, this is fine. We'll forget all the bad blood we've had over the years.
You remember all those people you killed? Yeah, it's fine. Yep. We get a little bit more detail on Adira. She is revealed that she is not a Trill, but she is Tal. So Tal, the Trill symbiote, is inside of her, even though she is a human being. Mm-hmm. But because she's not a Trill, her full access to Tal's memories are not that kind of connection. So again, it's a good setup, interesting character, some new blood joins the crew, and she is now going to come aboard and is going to go with them, and we're going to start heading down this mystery of where is the Federation, where is Starfleet, who is still involved, and we're going to get it through the prism of this young woman, or young person, I should say, since she is, I think, one of the LGBTQ plus characters that has been added this year. So then we get a nice scene between Burnham and Saru, where Burnham sort of apologizes. Not really. She sort of says, I should have told you, which I guess is an apology. She never actually says I'm sorry or my bad or anything like that. And she sort of says, well, maybe I'm just not ready to be a number one. And he says, well, maybe you are. And she says, yeah, actually, I am. So we end up with her being sort of anointed the number one, the commander. Mm-hmm. In a twist that I guess was predictable, but I will see how long it lasts. Book is, obviously not meant for Starfleet life, and he's packing up his troubles, and he's taking his fancy disappearing ship and he's leaving. So
yeah, he's gonna be the Han Solo that pops in later on to save the day kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really just a matter of time before he returns. But for the time being, we get this sort of moment of the two of them saying goodbye, and there's a will they, won't they? Is there a little? Are they gonna hug? What's in? He just sort of walks away, but of course he turns around and he looks at her before he goes. So he's not quite done with her yet. Right. The United Earth Force has decided to let some of the crew of Discovery have permission to go down and see Earth because of the good work that they did. And Saru says to Burnham, well, you can go with them. And she says, no, I like the view from up here, right next here with you. And then we cut down to the planet and we see a lot of the bridge crew. We see Tilly, we see Detmer, we see a bunch of the Reese and them all sort of back on the grounds of Starfleet Academy, or what was Starfleet Academy. They don't say what it is now. And there's this huge tree in the middle of the quad that they all remember, and it's grown over time, and they feel this connection to, okay, well, some things change with them, some things stay the same. We stood in this spot 900 years ago, and now we're back in this spot. And so it sort of centers them that this universe is still their universe and they belong here. And that is our sort of farewell, is that things change, but they stay the same. The Academy's still there, the tree's still there, and they are still alive.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So we talked about the two new characters that are coming to Discovery this year. One of them is the young lady.
Person.
Yes. What's her name again?
Adira.
Yeah. Now, so when you first saw her, did you recognize her as one of the new characters that was coming on the show, or did you kind of just go with the plot?
I recognized the description that from the description, I recognized that this was going to be one of those characters because she is, excuse me, I keep using she, and I apologize to those who are offended by that.
In fairness, I think the character in this episode used she. Understandably, you're trying to correct. I understand why, because from what we knew going into the season, it was a non-binary character. So, right. But I think in this episode, strictly speaking, the non-binary nature wasn't talked about, and I think Adira referred as she or her coming from themselves. So definitely appreciated the correction, but I don't think you need to feel that bad, because
Stamets also refers to her that way as well. When she goes into the spore drive and she's poking around and
and they haven't gone through that part, and perhaps the non-binary nature will come up as they go explore more of what does it mean for this human to have a Trill symbiote in them. I suppose.
So I totally forgot about the character coming on the show, and so I kind of just went with the story. I did kind of think she was familiar looking, because I think we've seen pictures of her.
Yes.
But, or her, or they, or whatever. They. And them. And it wasn't until the very end, when she started announcing that she was actually Admiral Tall, that I recognized, this is one of the characters is going to stay on the show, because obviously she wants to come and join the Discovery crew, right?
Yeah, so I just double checked to see how we refer to it. So in the Star Trek announcement, the performer's name is Blue Del Barrio. Blue is a non-binary actor who uses they, them pronouns, and that is also the pronouns they prefer for Adira. So henceforth, we will refer to Adira as Adira or them and they. We apologize if we accidentally slip into gender-based pronouns, but we're working on it. We really are trying. And I think it's nice that we are obviously getting these things. We do see that she does sort of take a shine to Stamets right away. She's pretty drawn to him. She's fascinated by the fact that he's the sort of thing that makes the spore drive work. And they did mention in that initial release that her character is going to be quite bonded and attached with Stamets and Culber. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Because
I see, right?
Yeah, because clearly they are a whiz.
He does sort of say to her, to them, that you don't seem like a regular kind of person. Like he does sort of sense something different about her. Something he says, "There's more to you." Right.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And we've never seen this. An interesting dynamic too. The idea of a Trill inside of a human is something that's never really, I think, been explored. Jaime, can you remember any references to that? I can't remember that coming across before.
Which specific aspect?
A Trill symbiote inside of a human being's body.
Not long term. I mean, Riker had to temporarily post Odan or Odin. I can't remember the name when Crusher had the Trill lover, and then they learned that the symbiote actually still exists, but it's going to be a completely different person now. I don't think this is normal, and I think that will probably play into the character's special place here, where they're having to figure out, well, this is kind of unprecedented, right? To have this senator, or sorry, not senator, what was he, Starfleet Admiral?
Admiral, Admiral.
Starfleet Admiral, who was like clearly trying to bring Starfleet and the Federation back together, died however they died, possibly under mysterious circumstances, right? We need to cover more of that. And I'm guessing they're having trouble accessing their memories sort of thing, and they know more than they really should. Fits into like, what if this is, simply like Jadzia Dax or Ezri Dax, like they had access to more memories and knowledge than would be possible given their youthful ages. And this person has that as well, given the 30th century or whatever century they're in, Wesley Crusher, right? Of like, genius. It's like, well, part of that's the symbiote thing, but also it's not completely an advantage because it feels like the human and Trill symbiote biologies aren't really meant to be together. So that might play into some of the storylines as well, I think. Of like, they won't be like, here I am as encyclopedia. It'd be more like, oh, wait, you know what? You said this thing that suddenly triggers this memory I have that can help us solve the situation. That's how I think the writers will play.
It's interesting from the math point of view that the message was sent by Admiral Tall 12 years ago, and they're only 16. So so when in their life did they get the symbiote put into them, right? Maybe at a young age, it was probably more feasible or something.
So, I mean, the symbiotes as shown, and maybe it was like a younger one or something, like, this isn't going to play well for a Canadian audience. They're roughly the size of an American football.
Not to be confused with a Canadian football. That's a different thing.
I don't know how many. I don't know if that size is exactly the same. The NFL and college are slightly different in dimensions. I don't know how many hockey pucks it takes to do that, but bear with me.
We have football in Canada too, but our balls
are bigger. Yeah, you got it.
Right. So approximately the size of a football, whether Canadian or American, and shoving one of those inside of a 4-year-old seems like there ain't a lot of room to go in that size of body. So I'm kind of curious how this ends up working.
Yeah, I guess we'll get a lot more as the weeks go on. Again, interesting introduction to a character. They are very interesting. It is nice to have a little bit of new energy.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm thinking, given just what's happened in these first 3 episodes, not related to Adira, but related to how I think Michael Burnham's character is going to play out this year, is that we can see this split in philosophy between what Georgiou and Saru represent, where Saru's like, we're Starfleet, we don't shoot first, we're going to die if we have to, honorably. And Georgiou's like, no, you do whatever it takes to survive. And Michael seems like she is going to be kind of caught between those two sides of like, she has the Starfleety, you got to live up to these principles, but has also clearly had to compromise at least some level of those just to get along in this crazy sort of lawless world, right? Where there's going to be that, I think, tension of when is it okay to bend the rules? When is it okay to stick to your principles, sort of thing? That's my prediction for what the rest of the episodes will play out as.
Yeah, that's actually a really shrewd assessment of that. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it makes sense, and then they do sort of show you those extremes with, you know, Saru saying that exact line, right? He says, you know, we do not fire first, and then, you know, he takes the defensive position, and yeah, it is a perfect analogy. And now that she's sort of had this year of being a swashbuckler, yeah, where does Burnham's heart lie, right? You know, and you know, will we see Book come back and tempt her away and move that forward? Again, she's been a really, really, maybe one of the most sort of most complex characters we've seen in Star Trek, and which is saying something after only 2 years and 2 seasons and a couple of episodes. But the kind of moral quandaries and ethical complexities that they've had in front of Burnham have made her a very, very interesting character, very, very realized in a way that I you know, not all the characters. I mean, it's taken some time. Certainly, we've gotten that with some of the other characters, but it's taken a lot more time. She's gotten a lot of depth in a short amount of time, you know, making the decisions in the first season, you know, where she sort of decides that, you know, she's going to take action and that she has to make up for those actions. And, you know, they really have put her in some interesting moral and ethical quandaries that make the show quite compelling. And Sonequa Martin Green's such a fantastic actor. She really brings that to life.
I think it'll be interesting to see some of the time-based differences. They didn't lean on it too heavy, but I think there was a little nod towards for her seeing Discovery is like, oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've seen you. And some of the characters like, wow, we're glad to see you because we never thought we'd see you again, but practically speaking, it wasn't.
It's been 10 minutes. Come on.
Yeah, that's why that one guy who comes out of the terminal, I was like, hey, what's up? Good to see you again. And Michael's kind of taken back, like, what the hell, dude? Well, like, because from that dude's perspective, it's only been like a day. You know, you haven't been gone that long.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too. So we have this sort of long story arc that we're going to, you know, develop over the series or this particular season in terms of, you know, where like they did last year with the search for Spock, right? But they, at the same time, they have this sort of typical Star Trek pattern where within 40 minutes, you know, you go from absolute guns drawn conflict to, hey, we're all going to have a party and let's go down and have a picnic on the green grass of Earth kind of thing, you know, and like dance around the maypole and whatever. Like it's you know, these two people who have been warring with each other, you know, the raider and this defense person, like there isn't, I'm sorry, there's not a cop in the world or security person in the world who would that easily drop their defenses once, you know, they realize, oh, he's just wearing a funny helmet, you know. He's really not such a bad guy after all, you know, like I always say to people, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Seems to be the way they operate. And I don't buy that they so easily, you know, bury the hatchet, as it were, you know, to use that metaphor.
Yeah, but I mean, I will say in defense of that, when the helmet comes off is just such a pitiable sight. Like he's gaunt and he's older and he's looking like he is just
ragged.
Have
you not seen this actor before?
I don't know.
He's Norwegian. I'm forgetting his name, but he was one of the most nasty guys in the Hell on Wheels show.
I never saw that one.
Yeah, what's his name? Captain Pike came from Anson Mount. Yeah, yeah. He was a piece of work, and he's been in a few shows where he's just like a, you know, sort of scoundrelly kind of guy. This is the first time I've sort of seen him play like with sort of an American accent, as it were, right? Because he's usually got sort of Swedish. He's called a Swede in Hell on Wheels, but he's actually from Norway, which he makes a point of pointing out to people all the time. But you know, because you know, 1800s or whatever, they're very racist in terms of how they address people. But yeah, he's played some pretty bent characters in his time, right? So yeah, it's interesting. Like as soon as I saw him, I thought, oh yeah, here we go. This is that same guy, and he's always sort of got this, you know, pathetic look, but he's really sort of a snidely kind of guy in the background, right? So, but the character didn't have that in this show, right? Sort of, you know, we're supposed to like, you know, Khan didn't bury the hatchet that quickly, right? Like, you know, once Kirk went, oh wait a minute, you know, we did put you on the wrong planet, and sorry about, you know, the sun going nova or whatever it was that caused Ceti Alpha 6 to become Ceti Alpha 5 or whatever. you know, I just find it convenient. I mean, like, you know, in the original series, it made sense that they would tie up loose ends in an hour, right? But every single episode of Star Trek from the get-go has always had some sort of conflict that ends up in solved in an episode or maybe a two-parter, right? Except for the whole, like, again, I just watched, I think I mentioned before we started recording, we lost that recording, like Tears and Rain, that I was watching All Good Things, you know, part 2 and part 1, and in that one, obviously, you know, like the first episode, I think Encounter at Farpoint, Q shows up, right?
Yep.
And puts Picard on trial, and then, you know, in the wrap up, spoilers for those of you who haven't seen this 10 years ago, that in the end of All Good Things, in fact, he says all good things must come to an end at the end of it. He says you've been on trial the whole 7 years that the show's been on, sort of thing, right? So they do have they have the ability to have arcs that go across, you know, entire episodes, but you know, or across the entire seasons or across the entire series in that sense. But they always, every episode seems to have a beginning, middle, and an end, right? So conveniently,
yeah.
Right.
Well, and I guess in this way, it's also over the course of a season, or you know, we may get more from this going forward. Although I think your initial observation is pretty bang on that, you know, it was a very like, and the forces of Federation and Starfleet policy, you know, prevail.
And they lived happily ever after.
Yeah. So, we get it.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that they did in, you know, like, oh, laundry was just a big computer thing. Let's destroy the computer and everybody will be happy and whatever. And then what was that show you were talking about a couple of weeks ago, Jaime? Or was it on Lower Decks?
It was Lower Decks where they went back.
They went back and it's like mayhem because they don't have the computer to follow anymore. Right? So, you know, like Captain Kirk forgot about, like, it's, you know, like Vietnam and, you know, ISIS and all these kind of places where the states go in and they you know, they settle the conflict, and yet they end up, you know, never being able to pull out completely because it's a mess, you know, afterwards, right? They remove the infrastructure that kept I mean, for all that the couriers, there's a pirate network and stuff like that, I mean, it's a system that carries on, you know, and Burnham had to play along in order to survive for a year, right? But even though, you know, the story has now moved to Earth and this conflict, the pirates are still out there making deals and kicking butts and taking names, you know, like stuff is still happening in the back room of Quark's bar, if you know what I'm saying, right? And it's just too convenient to wrap it up with a bow. Anyway.
I mean, if you want to assume extreme racism, like, oh man, I thought you were a creepy alien and you were human all this time, I would invite you in for beers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we got real racist in the time, and we say no.
So in 900 years in the future, they don't have scanners that can detect a life form?
I mean, maybe they were like, you know, doing some sort of anti-scanner stuff of like, oh, we'll appear like something else, you know, to be mysterious,
right?
Scarier.
Right. They have they've run out of technology and resources on Titan, but they have the capability to put on a, you know, what was that cloak of invincibility that Harry Potter had, right?
Yeah, they were like, look, we have everything we need except literally this unobtainium. This is like the one thing we need. We have everything else in abundance except this.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we can't feed our kids, but we can make these awesome masks and have a Halloween. All right. Well, let's move on to our watch list. What do we got going on here? Oh, look, it's me. Yeah, this is cool. I saw this the other day, and interesting thing. What they've done is this is deep fake technology where it's machine learning and visual analysis and that kind of stuff. And they've taken William Shatner and Christopher Pine and Zachary Quinto and Leonard Nimoy and also Carl Urban and DeFrost Kelly, and they've merged these two peoples together, and they've shown scenes from, you know, the J.J. Abrams version of Star Trek and some of the Kirk ones, or some of the later ones with Kirk in like I think Generations maybe, and they've deep faked these two actors together to make a sort of combination. So that, you know, and as much as Chris Pine looks like William Shatner at the same age, you know, like when you watch this, you're like, am I looking at William Shatner or am I looking at Chris Pine, you know, as they go through these different scenes, and they play it out, and of course they leave the voices the same as they would have been in the original shows, but, you know, there's like scenes where you're looking at Carl Kelly or DeFrost Urban, you know, and yeah, you're looking at it, and it's really kind of an amazing sort of amalgam of these two people. So it's kind of cool. And that's called Star Trek First Generation deep fake, and there's a link here to that and on the YouTube. And another thing, I saw this trailer a couple of days ago, and again I saw it during the Discovery just watched just now. It's called Moonbase 8. Fred Armisen, or what's his name? C. Kelly. What's that guy's name again? From Chicago, movie Chicago. No,
never seen it.
Comedian actors. They're talking about they're doing this sort of moon-based kind of thing where they want to go to Mars or they have to go back to the moon or something. So they're all wannabe astronauts. Sort of comedy, kind of Martian-y, like sort of similar to The Martian kind of thing. Comedy that's starting in November, so that's kind of interesting. I'm looking forward to watching Moonbase 8. It's called. And Jonathan, you got some really really depressing stuff to watch.
Yeah, you think it's depressing?
Well,
it's dramatic. I mean, get your popcorn ready.
I don't know. I'm waiting for the. It's a 2-parter, I think, right? A to be continued.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like a 6-week parter. But yeah, I looked through to see if there was anything sort of sci-fi fantasy in our wheelhouse that's happening this weekend. I didn't really see anything.
Yeah.
By the time this pod is up and running, the first episode of Mandalorian, which is what we talked about last week, I will have definitely got into that. But the thing that I am most looking forward to, that is better than anything that could be contrived,
a big bucket of popcorn.
We
folks.
Here in Canada will, as the rest of the world will be, watching with interested eyes to see what happens beginning with the U.S. election on Tuesday. Hopefully everything goes nicely and everybody behaves themselves, and it's the best of all worlds, where we have a fair and just election, and we have all kinds of good stuff. But given how tumultuous this year has been, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. But I honestly I can't think of anything that is going to be more compelling that's going to be on my television, whether it was scripted or otherwise, than what's going to unfold on Tuesday. So.
I saw an interesting post the other day for the Biden camp that said we prefer science over fiction.
Yeah,
and I thought it was fitting for this podcast.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, you could definitely make the case that fiction is the preferred method of one of the candidates, and I don't know that science is necessarily the one of the other one, but he seems to keep using that word over and over again, which is a good sign. So
who's that?
Well, Joe Biden says we will follow the science. He says that repeatedly on the stump.
Oh.
So
yeah,
we will see. Again, I wish nothing but the best for our American neighbors, Jaime. I hope everything goes smoothly down there, and that it's not the gong show that it could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my ballot has already been received. It has a little tracking thing. I see that it's successfully been submitted, and
that's cool. Do they have technology to do that? Like, I guess a barcode or something, right?
I mean, there is a QR code on the little stub, but I discovered that does nothing. I'm not sure what its purpose is. It's certainly not for my use. You go into votewa.gov and you put in your information, and it's like, all right, cool. We sent your ballot on this date, and we received it on this date back from you. And it's not as cool as, at my understanding, Oregon does, where they actually text you this stuff. So slightly better technology there. Kudos to the Oregonians. But I am also advising folks to be really clear, not to stockpile, because that just makes the problem worse. But if you're a little low on toilet paper or other essentials, you might want to make sure you find a little bit of time this weekend to make that trip, because people might do nutty things as they did at the beginning of the pandemic. So again, not stockpile, don't make an igloo out of the toilet paper. Just get more than one roll, so you're not left out.
Well, it's surprising that you say that, because I have a piece of medical equipment that I'm supposed to use, and it requires distilled water, and we've not been able to find distilled water in any of the grocery stores ever. Like, maybe you'll find a bottle here and there, but it's mostly bottled water has taken place of all the racks and racks of bottled water, but no distilled water, and things like that are really surprising of what's missing in the pandemic. So
limitations
as an example.
As kind of a silly thing to bring up as it is, I noticed the other day that McDonald's had radically modified its all-day breakfast menu, probably based on look, man, we're just not going to make as much stuff because we're not getting as much business, so we can't have all the options. Right. So if even a mega corporation is like, maybe we need to cut back a little bit, it just tells you how dire a situation everything is for the moment. So just pulling through. So this is perhaps a good season of Discovery to have now of like, hey, everything was dire, but here's how hopefully it ends happily or on the path towards goodness.
Years in the future. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, lots of fun. All right. I was watching the Connor. It's funny, I was watching a lot of shows have just come on the air and everybody's wearing masks on the shows and stuff like that. And so the Connors was on the other day and the showrunner, what's her name? Melissa Gilbert. Right? She did a sort of little speech at the end there about, the importance of voting and that kind of stuff. And what's her dad's name? The actor.
John Goodman.
John Goodman. Yeah. He says in character, he says, well, I got my ballot and I filled it out and I walked and I dropped it on the floor, on the ground right where the mailbox used to be. Anyway, let's hope people aren't doing that. Alrighty. So Jaime, you got something for our watch list?
Yeah, it's more of a fun generator. In this case, it's a Star Trek episode generator, or more like an episode, teaser synopsis sort of thing. So apparently this is powered by good old machine learning AI stuff, where they've run presumably the kinds of synopsis you might see on like a Wikipedia list of episodes sort of thing, or here's what Amazon or Netflix or CBS All Access say, like, here's what this episode is vaguely about, decide if you want to watch it sort of thing. And it's kind of fun. Some of them are better than others, some of them are way wordier than others, but here's one that I happen to get. Episode number 265. While on an away mission, the Enterprise encounters a strange being that puts them in touch with the quote Sky Dog. Or number 866. The crew of the Enterprise encounters a silicon-based organism that can reproduce at will, which is, just bizarre. Here, click the magic button again.
So the Enterprise is unwittingly used to present a unique gift to an alien race, the beautiful Endorian. But when her mother is found dead in her quarters, the crew must deal with a difficult decision of who to kill. Or while in command of the Enterprise after an attack, Picard is recalled to Vulcan, and after the Vulcan High Council lost all contact with him, and as he has to visit his old friend, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, he has a suggestion for him. Wait, what is Picard and Picard? I don't get it. All right.
So Tom Hardy's coming back?
I don't know.
This one is like hyper elaborate. Like you would hope this would be like a two-parter. So the Enterprise is caught in a time loop, which takes them to several planets where the Klingons are believed to be active soldiers. Picard suspects the Ferengi may be reliving the bitter memories of their dead ancestors, but the truth is, there's no time to move forward. The sooner they are caught, the sooner the Romulans can be stopped. Like, this is an intense episode. Like, wow, this is like a weird whodunit. Like, what's happening here? This is a dream within a holodeck simulation sort of thing, in an alternate reality sort of thing.
Yeah. So, another time warp one. The crew of the Enterprise gets caught in a time loop, and Riker and the Doctor accidentally getting aliens drunk and driving home while they try to help the planet ransom. Interesting stuff. Yeah, it's I like these sort of BS-o-matic kind of things, right? So lots of fun. I'm sure those will become plots in no time.
Yeah. See how desperate they get.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I can be found on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News.
And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
And my name is Timitra, Timmitra. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. Until next time, we'll see you in the future, if there is a future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard. Shut up, Wesley. Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
That wasn't too ominous. Jeez.
Yeah.
What do you know?
I know, that's at the level.
I'm waiting for
of, like,
Civil War. Civil War's coming in.
Let's pulling out your knife and carving no fate but what we make into
Exactly,
the table.
yeah. Harsh.
Oh, I'm talking about us. I was talking about,
Oh, yeah, because I'm sure the Americans will be well-behaved and respect our border if it all goes south.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. They might turn off the internet or something, or who knows?
Yep.
Well, it's interesting that like you said, that there are checks and balances. There's not going to be any electronic hanging chads, because I mean, there is one member of who's running around saying that everything's fake and it's going to be all BS, and right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a number of people who believe that as the truth, and it could lead to some very serious consequences. So yeah, it's I read a couple of good articles today. There's a good one in where was it? The Atlantic somewhere today. I read one that was about like what legitimately are the worst case scenarios from election day, and they were talking about like all these, and they were talking about like active voter suppression, where some of these armed militias are like actively like literally picking up ballot boxes and like smashing them and taking them and throwing them into lakes and stuff. And I was like, whoa, wow, okay, well, hopefully it doesn't get that bad.
Well, what's going on in Philadelphia? Because I heard there's like riots and police and
there was unfortunately there was another shooting of a black person in Philadelphia a few days ago. The police have said that he was armed with a knife, but of course any police violence on the black community is being met with very, very loud response lately, and not without justification, although in this case I think we need to see how it plays out. But things have sort of heated up there in the past few days, and Philadelphia is a pretty damn tough town at the best of times, so to have it roiled and in the midst of the election and in the midst of this is it's kind of a perfect storm, unfortunately. So Jaime, have you got the extra rolls of toilet paper?
I've got enough, given that we keep at a higher sustained level, given the experience we had in the early days of people stockpiling. Could use a couple more, just in case. It's like the pro tip, the real pro tip was, hey, you know what people probably aren't buying? They're probably not buying the commercial grade one that ends up in like doctor's offices and, the bathroom at the KFC or something, right? Like the big roll that they don't have to change too often. And then you just get a stand that has this comically sized roll. It's like, whatever, nobody's coming over who's going to see this unsightly sight. So
although I will say that my father owns a company that does cleaning supplies and stuff for office buildings, and so he used to bring that stuff home by the case, thinking, well, it's a good cost savings, but the quality is definitely a deterrent in the long term. If you're in the bathroom at the office and you're like, well, I've got to go, you kind of make do with what's available. But on an every single time you go basis, especially when you're not going out very much, I think that would get uncomfortable over the course of time.
This one didn't work out too bad, so I think we lucked out, because I just assumed it would be the experience that you talked about. They're like, all right, this is going to be the communist paper that they found in a sealed cask, after the Russian permafrost unfrost. They're like, hey, let's just put this on the market. It's put it on Amazon, right? And that wasn't the case. I have, in retrospect, no idea what my elementary school as a young lad used, because I assumed it was going to be that. And so apparently there must be a cheaper layer, a tier of class of this sort of stuff. So I lucked out for what you're talking about, but it is definitely no frills. There's no comfort weave. There's no, infused with lotion to keep you, from drying it. No. It's just like, it's this, or you got some leaves.
Get your business done and get out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I did see there's a couple of good stories in the past few months about what companies are doing to sort of make sure that their production levels stay up. And one of the ones was around paper products here in Canada. They were talking to one of the main producers up here, and they were saying, well, so what are you doing? And he said, in order to try and keep production at a high level, what we're doing is we're streamlining, right? We're getting rid of the absolute bottom on the absolute top, and we're aiming for the middle because that's where we can produce it at the highest volume and make sure that we're meeting our demands. So yeah, if you were used to buying the bargain brand, it's not there. If you're used to buying the premium brand, it's not there. And I've noticed that even in some of the products that I buy, like a few different places said that they're basically, if they produced, for the sake of argument, 10 different types of cookies at the Nabisco plant, now they're producing 6 because it's just easier to produce the 6 that sell the best and not produce the ones that are on the fringes because they just don't have the capacity with the amount of workers that are off and the shift changes and everything else. So that they were talking about that for, and I've noticed that in doing shopping for my kids and stuff, there's some products that they were fond of, and I'm like, it's gone. Like it just doesn't exist anymore. They're gone. So, certain type of cookies that Foster liked is gone. A certain type of breakfast cereal that we used to buy just doesn't exist anymore. Some products have just sort of vanished.
Yeah.
And in spite of the fact that things up here, we are definitely in the midst of our second wave up here where the numbers are going up and restrictions are becoming more in place and everything, but it's still like I was out doing grocery shopping earlier today and it still seems somewhat business as usual as it was a few weeks ago. But I went to the local Walmart to buy some products today and the entire paper towel section is gone, like not a single one in the entire store. So yeah, I think I paid $8 for 8 rolls of paper towels.
Really? Wow.
Because it was like the only brand they had in the entire store.
Wow.
So I've just told everybody now you have to eat over the sink.
Oh, because they all use them as plates?
Well, you use napkins for like wiping your mouth and whatever else, and now you just eat over the sink. Yeah. Anything spills, it just hits the sink. You wash it down. You're there. You just wipe your face off in the water. It's all fine.
Right.
It's a good thing I have sons.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have sons sometimes.
It's time to learn what bachelor life is. You make your mac and cheese and you don't use a bowl. The bowl is the pot that you made it in.
That's
so
right. The pot's got a handle for a reason, son.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, my iPhone will arrive on Monday. I'll be tracking that.
I'm getting, this is a weird one. So I got a note from Best Buy Canada this morning that said my PlayStation 5 remote control is coming tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the system doesn't come out for 2 more weeks.
Well, you have to sign for it to receive it? Yeah. Well, we get the same thing. You'll get your charger and your other stuff long before you'll get your actual phone.
It's just funny. That's the first time I can recall that ever happening on a video game release. And I
really?
I both have covered video game releases as a professional, and I've obviously been a consumer over the past 30 plus years, and really? I cannot recall at any time peripherals for a system coming out before the system.
Yeah, that's true.
You could argue it makes a lot of sense, though, the idea that if they're distributing all of that stuff ahead of time, it makes it that much less that they may need to do down the road. But then if you're ordering the peripherals, it's probably because you're ordering the system, so they're going to have to come to your house anyways. So I don't know. I guess it keeps the trucks from being overloaded on the day of delivery. They can just fill it with units and not with peripherals, but I don't know. It's a strange choice.
It probably makes the packing easier because unless they put like a sleeve or something to make those all uniform, you would have a whole bunch of boxes that are shaped exactly the same for the home system itself. And then you'd have a whole bunch of boxes that are shaped exactly the same for the controllers. So even though it seems counterintuitive, like, dude, just get some duct tape and duct tape that thing to mine.
Yeah.
And just, put it on the truck. It's like, well, but now we've got a like semi-pyramid shape that we're talking about here, right? Or like an oblong rectangle that not everybody got the extra controller or something. So how do we pack versus just tightly pack these things, get them on a pallet and ship them over, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll be happy if everything arrives intact and on time. That's in this day and age, that's kind of a win on its own. It'll be interesting to see how Christmas shipping is handled this year, when cutoffs will come, and we often send a care package to our family in Australia and everything else. They're going to need it mailed by November 2nd.
Wow.
Yeah, my family's been like, oh, well, we want to send you stuff, but it might be late. I'm like, I'm going to be here the entire time. There's not like the normal, like, well, you either better hold on to that thing so when I go into town, you can give it to me, or you need to ship it so it definitely arrives before I leave, or definitely arrives after I have returned. And now it's like, well, I'm just going to be here the entire holiday season, so it can come in January for all I care. It doesn't matter. I'll be here. I'll get it just as nicely.
Yeah. How did I meant to ask you? I saw that things are getting kind of bad in El Paso. Is everybody with your side okay?
Yeah, my friends and family over there are okay. Thankfully, they're going into, the city's going down into like a lockdown again for like 2 weeks, starting tomorrow, I think. And the local university football team in the same week, because I'm still on their like alumni distribution list, went from like, hey, UTEP is playing North Texas. Okay, no fans in the stadium. All right, we've postponed the game. I'm like, holy smokes, that is a rapidly deteriorating situation there. So, you know, it sucks because obviously, like, my ears perk up more when it's Texas, and certainly given the size of Texas when it's in the El Paso area. I've sort of, you know, keep in touch with family, try to tell everybody, hey, yo, stay home, don't go out, don't do nothing. Yeah, it's tough, but like watch Netflix or something, you know, just deal with it. It's tough, you know, because it's been, let's see, what is it? I don't know when they started, but let's say, you know, it's been 6 or 7 months of stuff, and people they're getting pretty fatigued. And I think it's different when, you know, I think if there was like bombs dropping outside the window, I think people would have a little bit more motivation to stay inside. But when you have a non-obvious risk-benefit analysis, it, you know, human nature sort of plays into it.
Yeah. Oh, scary times.
Indeed.
Yep. I guess it's time to call it.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Hope to see what happens next week.
Yep. It will be
folks.
Me next week, correct? Doing the recap?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. Talk to you guys later.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, here's how Miro works. See, it's amazing.
What's everyone doing at David's desk?
Ever since marketing started using Miro's collaborative online whiteboard, he thinks all our other teams should sign up.
Why?
He says Miro's making his meetings disappear. And if every team gets on it, that means even less meetings. They're using Miro for brainstorms, mind maps, customer research.
So could we use Miro instead of having another 100 meetings for every round of feedback?
Yep. You can comment, react to ideas, even leave a recording on the board.
And what about presentations?
There are Miro templates for that.
How do you know so much about Miro?
I've actually been using it all along. I just used a Miro board to plan the best vacation.
Okay, I'm on board.
See how Miro users save up to 80 hours every year by meeting less and doing more. Get on board at Miro.com with 3 boards free forever. That's MIRO.com.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.